Our superpowers as women are less in our heads and more between our legs. I am an orgasm facilitator. Women, they feel like they're constantly in their masculine, working, grinding, organizing, and they completely disconnected from their feminine. They don't feel pleasure. The intimacy with their partner is almost non-existent. Women finally fall in love with themselves and starts to source their power within instead of outsourcing it through a man, through another surgery, through another Gucci bag. They are leaving toxic relationships, leaving soul-sucking jobs, starting their companies, going on stages, taking space, and really becoming empowered.
How can they use sex to manifest these things?
So Bibi, anyone can go to your Instagram and they're going to find out that you've helped thousands of women, thousands of men, thousands of couples. I want for our listeners to know, what is it you do and what's the problem that you solve the most?
What I do, I like to, if I have to do like a very short pitch elevator, I like to say that I am an orgasm facilitator.
I love that.
But there is much more to that than you can think. And what I would say the main intention is to help people to reconnect with the sensual, erotic energy in a conscious and intentional way. And that means that the way they self-pleasure is going to change, the way they make love with their partners is going to transform. But even more than that, because once we really have access to what is essentially the most powerful energy we can source within, then really everything in life changes. And that has been my story and thousands of my clients, from becoming actually just falling in love within yourself and your body, becoming more confident, more creative, and supernatural, as Joe Dispenza likes to say.
What's kind of the typical problem that men and women come to you for individually?
Yes, so definitely more women come to me, and that we can talk about it later. Men are much more reluctant to even talk about the topic of intimacy and then actually do something about it, right? Women are, you see the same as with any kind of spirituality workshops. It's usually 70-80% women.
Why do you think that is?
I think few reasons for that. One is because it requires vulnerability. It requires admitting that something is not necessarily working, or even that it's working, but I want to grow. And secondly, I would say men value soft skills less. So they're so much more open to invest in another business course, focus, or productivity thing, but somehow they dismiss things like emotional intelligence, intimacy, again, all the soft skills, right? Let's look at the women. Women usually come, they feel like they're constantly in their masculine, working, doing, grinding, organizing, and they completely disconnected from their feminine. Sometimes they don't exactly know what that means, so that's what we figure actually out during the work together. But usually the symptoms will be they feel disconnected from their body. They don't feel pleasure. They lose interest in intimacy. It's hard for them to orgasm. Or even, the intimacy with their partner is almost non-existent, right? So another one is they have a challenge. They're challenged to experience orgasms. And there's actually about 15% of women who never experienced orgasm. I think there's more, but that's what the official statistics say.
Did you say 15%?
15. Mm-hmm.
So 15% of women have never experienced an orgasm.
And so women want to know, and we are in this beautiful moment in history, that there is finally enough information, right? So they hear from me on my social media that there is many different pleasure experience possible, right? Full body energy, chest, heart, big O's, and so on. And finally they become, okay, so nothing is wrong with me. It's actually possible. And there are even also other ways, connecting more to pleasure, becoming more orgasmic. Sometimes another big pain point will be also complete lack of intimacy or low quality, not nourishing intimacy in a relationship. So a lot of sexless marriages, maybe, or a lot of women, let's say, come to me after they have just divorced or separated from a partner that didn't work. Either they divorced, they broke up a toxic relationship or one that there was no intimacy in, or they even maybe quit their jobs, are having like a professional career move and find that this work can help them because they have also heard my story. So let's say these are some of the top things.
Let's talk about your story, because you went from corporate banking in New York to then becoming who you are today. So sex magic, conscious intimacy, and all of this stuff. I want to understand, how do you see our listeners relating to your journey?
Oh my God, there's so many people that come to me and tell me, I just can relate to your story so much. And I think my story is quite typical, because when I was choosing my career path, being 18 years old, what did I choose? I chose something that seemed logical and a good career move. You know, growing up in communism, I was like, I want to have what my parents didn't have. I want to have money and I want to be able to travel. And finance, banking, and all that glossy international career seemed like a great move. So I chose not because of passion or conviction or aligning myself with purpose. I had no idea what purpose was back then.
Yeah.
I chose that career because that seemed logical, and that's what society labeled as a great move.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, get into the whole race, and then in the whole grind. I had an opportunity to move around the world. I worked all over the world, from Australia, Sao Paulo, Mexico City, you name it.
Living the dream.
Yeah, but you kind of are brainwashed into being the part of the whole machine. And you not necessarily love your job, but you're told that's like a secure place. Then your costs obviously start to grow, because what I also realized is, because I was unfulfilled, I had to spend all the money to feel glimpse of pleasure, or what I thought fulfillment was, right? Traveling, shopping, going to all the fancy restaurants, partying, and spending hell a lot of money on that to fill the void.
Yeah.
So then you feel you're trapped in that kind of work you don't love, because you have to pay all the bills. And that's how they keep you going. And that is exactly why I was too scared to leave for almost 15 years. But at some point, what happens is, and I see this happening, among our friends and among my colleagues, that usually around 40, you get to a point of like a midlife crisis, name it however you want, where the pendulum swings on the opposite side, and no amount of shopping, traveling, casual eggs, or alcohol can fill up the void anymore. And the situation change, and staying in the same place becomes more painful than leaving, even if it's scary and uncertain. So that's exactly the point that I got to. Okay, my company moved me to Brazil. Can you imagine? I was flying on private jets to private islands, being on private boats. I had my Rolex and a Gucci bag. And I'm like, wait, I am actually the most unhappy I've ever been. Wow. So this is not the way. But yeah, I was really down. I was unfulfilled. I was complaining all the time. And even going all these parties in Ibiza here and there, I would come back and be even more depressed. I kind of hit the bottom, and I was like, okay, something needs to change. And that is where I open up to new kind of guidance. And, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. You need to hit some kind of a rock bottom. Yep. There needs to be enough discomfort for us to actually be willing to change.
Wow. So it's literally the golden handcuffs that you were in.
I always talk about that,
Golden handcuffs.
And so many women, especially women, come to me saying, I am in this well-paid job. I am in this comfortable situation. I'm used to this. It's scary to leave all that. I resonate with your story so much. So I actually have, I would say, probably half of the women come to me because of the intimacy story, and a lot of women come to me because of that part of my journey.
I definitely want to get into couples intimacy and sexless marriages, but I really want to dissect first the connection between masculine and feminine. And when you say a woman, she would be too much in her masculine and wouldn't be able to orgasm, for example. Like, I want to really dissect this down, starting off with the kind of masculine feminine dynamic, and then how feminine power relates to orgasming.
Yeah. The masculine. So again, and that was also part of my story, right? It's all happening in the head. All the decisions are taken based on logic. We normally don't listen to our body, right? You are tired, you get another coffee and you power through a 12-hour working day.
Yeah.
And again, this was my experience in finance and banking. Unhealthy competition, kind of, not really, no genuine connections. Everything is quite transactional, opportunistic, and it's not rooted in empathy or community or doing good for the planet. None of that. These are all much more feminine traits, right? So not only there is like disconnect from the body itself because you literally ignore it. If you're tired, you just, again, power through, and so many women just basically burn out.
Yeah.
So many women stop having regular menstruation, or they want to get pregnant and they can't. So there are many ways that this kind of, powering through manifests. So that's being in the masculine and not honoring the body, the cycle, etc. Then how it then translates into pleasure is that if we're constantly stressed and tense, it's actually very difficult to experience pleasure. The more tensed and stressed we are, the more receptive to pain. The more relaxed and open, the more we are receptive to pleasure. But it is not even it's a state that those women hardly have access to. If they're constantly go, do, if I tell women at the beginning we're going to self-pleasure for an hour, the first question is, what are we even going to do for an hour?
Wow.
It's so much easier for women just to put a vibrator and, get another task off the list. Again, not really connecting to your body, not taking time to relax, not taking time to feel. So does that make sense? And how we go we swing into so much of the masculine that there is, again, very little happening below the head.
The work that you do, exploring your body as a woman, is that how they can then start connecting more into their feminine?
Yes. So again, one thing that I always want to say, that I'm not going to define for my students, my clients, what feminine means. We actually have a whole session where they kind of see what kind of description and what kind of qualities really deeply resonate with them. So I'm not going to tell every woman, hey, in order to be feminine, you have to be flowy and soft and slow. I want you to define it with yourself. But how are you going to define it? First, by being less in your head and more in your body. So how does this work? We are slowing down. We are starting to really connect to the entire body, not just to reproductive organs. We are slowly starting to feel, because it actually takes some time to tune into more subtle sensations. We also change the mindset from a goal-oriented self-pleasure or goal-oriented intimacy with a partner to just, hey, being with the moment. Can you connect to whatever is? And maybe it's going to be tears or sadness or maybe gentle pulsation, and just be with that. So we start to open up to welcoming more emotions and fuller emotional range, because I always say, if you want to feel more pleasure, more ecstasy, you just have to feel more, and you can't just pick and choose. So women also start to cry, and they start to feel anger and resentment and sadness and grief, and that opens them up to feeling more pleasure as well. So again, being connected to our emotions, such a big, part of connecting to your feminine, connecting to more to your body, and then to pleasure. And what's really fascinating, and I know this might be a little controversial for some people if I'm going to say that, but this has been my experience and so many of my clients, that our superpowers as women are less in our heads.
Yep.
and more between our legs.
Oh, I love that.
And that is, that's the social media
I love that.
censorship-free version, because we are trying so hard, and that was me for 15 years in finance and banking, to fit in the men's world. And I was never really successful in that. And the women that were exactly the ones who were fully burning out and going into this unhealthy masculine. I was never really successful because the traits that I have, my intuition, my creativity, my freedom, that was never appreciated in that context. But once I stepped out of it and I started to tap into this, the amount of creative energy that I started to have access to once I started experiencing full body energy orgasms, I call it actually, I have a whole process. When I create a new course or when I create a new event and I want to come with the most juicy ideas, I go for an intentional self-pleasure process.
Wow.
I have a pen and a paper, I have a visualization, and then I add pleasure, I ride the waves, and I write it all down because there are so many ideas. I call it erotic downloads.
Wow.
So that was number one. Number two, you start to just become more embodied, more in love and in acceptance of your body, more confident, more unapologetically you. I just trust myself, and I have that. And I know it again may sound cliche, but it's really what it is. There is a certain radiance, there is a certain inner power. I'm not like insecure anymore. Oh my God, I'm getting older. Oh my God, my chest is too small. Oh my God, all these things, I'm not good enough. I just know my power and I own it. And I get on stages to talk in front of 1,000 people, and I trust my ideas. And in business, I follow my intuition. I remember one of the agencies that I hired at the beginning to scale, male-driven agency, and first thing they asked me, what is your target for this year? What is your financial sales target for this year? I don't have a target. I didn't know. Let's just see. What do you mean you don't have a target? I'm like, I don't want to put targets because then I'm stressing like what I did for 15 years in corporate, and I'm going to be selling from a dishonest place just to hit the quota. I don't want that. We're going to flow. And guess what? Like it went 3 times more than what these guys predicted.
Yeah.
And I just never have a sales quota. So I trust my intuition with my business decisions. And it's just much more female-led.
I know so many women who are very successful, equally wanting to better themselves. So what you've described to me, is it that the more they connect to their bodies, the more self-trust they have, the more inner confidence they have, the more they radiate, the more magnetized they become.
Yes.
And that shows up in their reality.
Yes. And there is even more to that. I don't know. Have you ever read the book Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler and Jamie
but
Wheel?
it's on my list, yeah.
It's a great book, and it talks about reaching altered states of awareness. They call it STARE, where there is selflessness, egolessness, timelessness, and richness. And they describe, again, stealing fire from the gods, what are some of those ways we can alter those altered states. And there are psychedelics, flow state, conscious sexuality is one of them, and those prolonged orgasmic states. And then they describe how we really start to expand our awareness, have access to different insights, right? We see things from a different perspective. So apart from all this kind of maybe more soft things like radiance, magnetism, they're literally better ideas. And that's what is described in the book. They are training, let's say, everyone in Google on meditation. Why? Because they want them to have this different perspective, those deeper insights. So again, through all those energy orgasms, etc., you become supernatural, as Joe Dispenza would like to say. So I would just love you to see how it is all aligned, right? Because we're moving this energy up, essentially doing the same what Joe Dispenza does in his work. And you start to have access to, again, more of intuition, but bigger ideas, new perspectives. So that as well. And also just confidence.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, the beauty industry thrives on women's insecurities. We are constantly told that we are not enough and we need this and this and that to be beautiful, desirable, and lovable. And you slowly start to let go of that. One of the number one things that women tell me in my signature course is, Bibi, it's the first time I have fallen in love with myself. I give you an example. I have a lady who worked in fashion industry in New York, and she was obviously caught up on all the plastic surgeries. Just was like one after the other, disconnected from her body. She joined my course, and she had epiphany moment. I love my body. No more plastic surgeries. She started to experience pleasure and orgasms. She actually wrote a book, so beautiful, describing this journey when she mentioned the works that we have done together and how much it meant for her. And I have so many more examples like that. So women finally fall in love with themselves and starts to source their power within instead of outsourcing it through a man, through another surgery, through another Gucci bag, or whatever that is.
Would you say that this practice should be applied by all women, or is it only for certain types of women?
I think, for all women, because let's be honest, if you look at it, the reason why female sexuality has been suppressed for 5,000 plus years, when I look what is happening when the women reclaim their pleasure, when they reconnect to their body, when they activate that energy, I like to say they're popping like a popcorn. Mm-hmm. They are leaving toxic relationships, leaving soul-sucking jobs, starting their companies, going on stages, taking space, asking for a pay rise they deserve, and really becoming empowered. So I think it is a general thing that kind of the patriarchal system implemented, that somehow through not accessing our pleasure, suppressing our sexuality, we are more disempowered.
Yeah.
So I think it's relevant for all the women.
I was watching one of your testimonials from one of your clients, and she was explaining how she felt more connected to her feminine power and was actually attracting more high conscious men into her life.
Oh, that is happening all the time. And I experienced this as well. It's fascinating that once you are, just more sure of yourself, more confident, and you attract different type of men and more aligned with what really resonates with you, rather than maybe seeking validation or just a hookup because you need it. You come from a very different place. So I noticed that. Yeah.
I really love this because I'm so big on getting to the depths, because once you go deeper, you start to align more with a better reality. And so I'm kind of picturing two women here. One woman who is very much in her masculine, seeing sex as almost like just a quick task and a quick kind of pleasure and hit. Mm-hmm. And therefore attracting guys who are also into that.
Exactly.
And then the other woman being so connected with her body, feeling empowered by herself, and therefore attracting much more higher conscious men who are not just seeking quick validation.
Absolutely.
But it all starts with going deeper, which is figuring out kind of.
And you know what? It actually really works magic. And I'm going to share some fun personal stories because those are always fun. Yeah. As I was going back to my hometown, for all the viewers who don't know my story, both of my parents passed in the last 2 years. And when my dad was going through the cancer treatment, I decided to move back to Poland, to my hometown. And of course, the first thought I said, oh my God, there's no conscious man here. Who am I going to date? Yeah. And look how even like the sixth sense works. And a few weeks in, I saw an interesting man in the gym, the only one. And I chatted him up and I asked for his number and we went on a date. And I knew nothing about this man. And look, he just quit alcohol and he just kind of slowed down his business. And he was in a moment when he started for the first time to experience presence, and he was ready to enter more of a spiritual path, but he had no idea how. And here I am. I appeared on, on his path. And how amazing is that we can attract those partners, those men, who are open, who are conscious, who are willing to learn.
That's it.
it's just like basically from an intuition and some kind of a sixth sense. But this, I share this story because so many women share stories like that with me.
Yep.
Oh, I really, after your course, I really wanted to experience Tantra. And I just went on a date. And this guy asked if I ever heard of Tantra. Or this man just said, oh, I just came from a Tantra retreat, or whatever it is. But stories like this are just repeating so often.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? You raise your vibration and you're going to attract people with the same vibration.
Exactly.
I want to quickly touch on men before we get into couples, because I'm so curious about, this is so fascinating where, you can go deeper where a woman can connect to her body and as a result, her entire life can shift. How does this apply to men if men connect to their body?
It is also transformational. So again, I'm going to say that I work with thousands of women. I don't work with that many men. I do because I have a couples course, so mainly in a context of couples. But usually it can be a very powerful portal to some kind of spiritual, I don't want to maybe say awakening, but for them, becoming open to go deeper into a personal growth, personal development way through this. So for example, energy full body orgasm will be a great example for that. Okay. So many men, again, sadly, because of what we are fed since the young age, especially men and all the pornography and unconsciously portrayed intimacy, it's very physical, it's very short, even how they self-pleasure, right? And when we learn how to move energy, how to have those non-ejaculatory full body orgasm, then they start to go into altered states for the first time. And maybe, again, not so many men are patient enough to do meditation, or they dismiss it for various ways, right? While sexuality is a great portal, which they kind of didn't expect. They came probably not thinking it's going to be spiritual work. Yep. So we kind of tricked them in. And once they start to feel energy, move energy, experience those meditative states through conscious intimacy, their awareness expands. Seeds are planted, and there are many, many shifts. So yeah.
Okay.
I had men who, again, quit drinking alcohol, quit drugs, quit cheating on their partners, and started to make a really big life changes. And their entry point was that. So again, for everyone, this entry point will be different. I don't know, what was your entry point? Mine was my first full body energy big O, where I touched kind of God and for the first time entered into this altered state.
Wow.
And then it continued. But for someone else, it will be Kundalini yoga. For someone else, it will be medicinal plants. And for many, it will be conscious intimacy and energy big O's.
For me, it was monks. I met monks.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
But this would have been way more fun going down this route. I want to talk about couples. 70% of divorces are initiated by women.
Yeah, I read that statistics. It's going viral on Instagram. Yeah.
What's the biggest problem that you see when couples come to you?
I would say the biggest problem is that people think that intimacy somehow will be amazing like it used to be in the beginning of a relationship for years without any effort. So there is this underlying belief that sex should be great. And as you said to me at the beginning, we never talk about it. We never learn about how to actually become good at that. We don't prioritize it. We usually, most couples just, have sex at 10 p.m. after they have been tired for the entire day and done a million things. And it's like the last thing on the agenda. And then they're just too tired to even engage in something more meaningful than a 5-minute quickie, if even that. Yeah. So the idea that it should be amazing by itself, and if it's not, it means the relationship is, not good, or it's not the right partner, or something is wrong with us.
So sex doesn't necessarily define this, like if a relationship's good or bad. It's just...
No, I would say it's one of the important components, definitely, and it usually mirrors everything else in life. It doesn't define it, but it's a big part of it. And I would say when there are challenges in the bedroom, there are usually challenges elsewhere as well. Because to me, bedroom is not just a mirror of everything else that goes in life, but it's also a great training ground.
Wow.
For everything.
I love that.
Because there is so much it works both for women and couples. I always say, guys, if you actually work on your intimacy and sexuality, and we break through some of the conditioning, some of the fears, a fact that maybe you don't have clear boundaries, communication skills, there is so much taboo, there is so much conditioning around the topic of sex that once you actually break through for all those things in the bedroom, it's so much easier to do it elsewhere outside of it. Another point of that female empowerment and why our work works outside of the bedroom, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you learn how to say no in the bedroom, it's so much easier to do the same with your work colleagues. If you learn how to ask for what you want in intimacy, with so many people are so afraid of that, it's so much easier to go to your boss and ask for a pay rise, and so on and so on. Couples, let's come back to one more topic here that is kind of connected to what I just with what I just said. That people think that the spark is gone. There is this idea of the spark. The spark is gone, and
this is sexless marriages, right? Like.
Yes, but sometimes maybe they're still even intimate because a man will treat it more like a stress release and purely physical act. A woman will just treat it as her marital duty and something she should do for just the sake of the marriage not to fall apart, whatever that is. So, yeah, they might be still doing it, but it's not really exciting or nourishing.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much confusion around the spark. The spark is something you have at the beginning in the relationship. You fall in love. There is a very specific cocktails of hormones designed for us to procreate as soon as we can, etc. And it's different or what it's going to be 10 years down the road. And when I work with couples, I always say, I am actually not going to try to bring back the spark you had at the beginning. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago. Without kids, without responsibilities, young, freshly, newly met. You are, guys, different people right now. So we are not going to try to recreate what you had 10 years ago. What I want to create is an intimacy with more intentionality, with more depth, that is more sustainable, not just what I called an effortless attraction. What people refer to as a spark, I refer to this as an effortless attraction. And that's what you have at the beginning of the relationship. You don't really have to do much, and you are excited for each other. But 10, 20 years down the road, that's not the case. It doesn't mean that you are not meant for each other, that you fell out of love, and that your spark is gone. The effortless attraction is gone. But you can still come together, connect emotionally, learn each other's initiation styles and turn-ons, learn different ways to be intimate, not just through entry and penetration, but sensual, energetic, maybe even power play dynamics, right? Increase your let's say sexual IQ.
Yeah.
Learn and practice how to become good lovers, because it's a skill that we want to cultivate like everything else in life. And the more you practice, the better you become. So there just needs to be a little bit of learning. There needs to be a mind shift that yes, there is something to learn and that we need to commit to this and prioritize that. And then learning the tools, the practices, the rituals, and then showing up to actually do them.
Right.
And prioritizing it. Because look at that, for couples, everything else will be first. Kids, business, even family, social commitments. What are you going to likely cancel first? Dinner with friends or, a date night with your partner?
Right. Yeah.
Probably the latter, right? Yeah. So it's kind of really the last on the priority list. And what I will add to this Again, I work with hundreds of couples because my signature course, Ecstatic Lovers Academy, is quite big. And the number one challenge consistently for every single couple is time. Not the practices itself, because I designed them the way that we warm up into that, we gain trust, we progress slowly, etc. It's time that everyone is constantly struggling with. No time. We had this to do, this to do. I actually, in my course, I tell people you will need about 2 hours a week of commitment. Everyone, that's easy.
But
We
when
thought
it-
maybe 5 or 7. Quickly, they realize they don't even have half an hour of committed quality time. And going to cinema doesn't count. Sitting in front of a TV, watching a series doesn't count. It's like being together with each other, not even half an hour a week. And then everyone expects amazing relationships. I tell them, you probably go more to the gym than actually
Yeah, showing up for your partner.
show up for your romantic relationship.
So would you say that's actually the biggest cause of ending up in a relationship where you're basically roommates or sexless marriages or anything
That
like
is one of the top causes.
Yeah.
I would say another one is complete lack of awareness, because we don't get any education, any tools or anything on conflict resolution, conscious communication, emotional intelligence. All of that. I start my course with couples with all of this, because how are we even gonna talk about intimacy if we don't know how to communicate? How are we going to give feedback if things, don't work, etc.? And then about the fact that there are actually skills that we need to learn, how the anatomy works, how our pleasure arousal works. Like, no one told us those things. And
Right.
porn was designed to entertain, not to educate, but we mistakenly have taken it as the number one source of education, and everyone is, lost because of that. So also this part, which is complete lack of understanding how pleasure and orgasm work.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into all the kind of do's and don'ts of the bedroom. Just dissecting this topic down further, you've got someone ending up in a position where the spark has gone. Mm-hmm. Obviously, your advice is around giving them the tools and understanding of how to deal with that. When it comes to couples intimacy, I mean, when they start, it's like all this passion and fire, and it's like, I'm obsessed with this person. What kills the attraction over time?
So first of all, there's actually, you can dive deeper into this. There's there is the honeymoon period where there is all kind of, dopamine, serotonin, etc. released in order for us to procreate before we change our mind. Okay, so that's just basically survival mechanism of human race. And then let's add to this that you are with this person living together, having daily chores, kids, busy work, and the lifestyle that we have that is completely not conducive of connecting with neither our bodies nor with a partner, right? We are constantly tired, stressed, overwhelmed, and then we are glued to our phones and screens. So I would say there isn't actually anything in our lifestyle or education that helps those couples to thrive long term.
Right.
Give me one thing.
It makes sense. Like, it's like, if I want to grow my business, I put attention on my business. If I want to grow in that area, I need to put attention on it more.
True, but that's not the mindset that we were given, right?
Because it was so effortless at the beginning.
It was so effortless at the beginning, and no one ever talked, because let's be honest, I have 3 master degrees, and it was clear from the beginning to me that if I want to grow a business, I'll have to invest and learn, but no one ever told me that if I want a successful relationship, I should be investing in emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, or nonviolent communication. I didn't find that out till I was, in my late 30s, wondering why the relationships are not working out.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation, right? Because I think more people need to know about this. So now I want to kind of zoom out to someone listening to this, a woman, and we'll also discuss a man as well. How can a woman bring that attraction back where, the spark's gone, she's no longer attracted to her husband, or not feeling, like you said, doing it out of duty? How can that kind of come back?
I don't know if the attraction is the right word. I would maybe say connection, okay, for now. And it starts with an honest conversation. I know it sounds not that of an exciting revolutionary step, but it really takes two people to admit, hey, it's not amazing, we are not enjoying it, and there is room for growth. Are we both committed to that? So first, an honest check-in. Secondly, both sides need to be committed. Usually, if it's just one, what I will tell women is, you know what, okay, and that's how many women end up in my women-only course. Start with yourself and do the work with yourself first. And then there will be two reactions, possibly. Either your man will notice you are more connected, more radiant, and often that happens, and men say, I love what I'm seeing, I want a part of that, I want to be a part of that. Or you will probably drift apart, but at least you will be clear, and hopefully the first scenario is going to take place.
Yeah.
Not always, I cannot guarantee, but most of the time it does. So commitment to actually doing something about it. And then, guys, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, if you would ask me, what do I do to become an amazing kite surfer, who I am, or a tennis player, or learn a new language, are you just going to go and try to figure it out by yourself? No, you're going to hire a trainer. So, guys, let's take advantage of the fact that we are in a very special moment in the history of humanity, where never before we had access to so much information about conscious intimacy and sexuality as we have right now. Even 10 years ago when I was starting, it was still, a little, I had to like sneak in and change the titles of my talks so they don't kick me out, etc. In some places, house would be say, "Ooh, maybe that's too much." Now everyone wants it. There is never been that many podcasts, courses, books on the topic, retreats, etc. So don't try to necessarily figure it all by yourself. Ask a specialist, ask an expert, and follow their guidance. Make it easy for yourself, because if there is already a tension, if there's already a disconnection, and you're trying to figure it out yourself, it's going to be harder. So you start with rituals, you start with emotional connection, creating safety. You then move into sensuality and actually understanding that sensuality and sexuality are two different things. So many couples are obsessed with penetration and entry because we were brainwashed into the fact that that's what sex is, and that's the only thing that counts. Why? Because religion told us that if you want to make love, it's only for procreation. So the only thing that counts is the entry and ejaculation, right? And then corn, I start speaking code here, corn only enforces that. And there was some kind of a study done that 99.9% of porn has penetration and ejaculation in it, right? Yeah. So that's the idea that we all have. And it's actually not the best way for women to orgasm. For men, there's a lot of pressure on the performance, etc. We are often too tired. And can we just even expand to all the non-penetrative ways to make love? And there is so many of them. Learning a lot of different frameworks. Erotic blueprints are great, right? Women are actually not that high on sexual. They are mainly energetic and sensual. So understanding our differences, understanding our different initiation styles, different turn-ons, all the different types of pleasure and big orgasms that we can access, right? And so on. So that is kind of the work that we do, but it starts with communication, safety, and emotional connection.
I'm going to ask you a question because I asked this to my friend. We were just having a conversation around how men and women view sex. And I asked her, and you can tell me your thoughts on this. I said, how do you view sex when you say a guy was good in bed? What would count? And she said it was everything from the moment I saw him all the way to the moment he left me. So how he was, taking my clothes off, how he was kissing me, how he was holding me, plus obviously penetration. Well, as men, we just see it as penetration. So when we think of sex, we literally just think penetration. Whereas when women think of sex, it's so much more than that. Absolutely. And that brought me to what you actually told me about way back when I think you were in Dubai last time. and you said the shift in belief that you need to have when you're with a woman is that her pleasure starts, that her spirals in, whereas men's pleasure spirals out. And that shifted everything, because it was like, it made sense when I was speaking to this friend that her idea of sex started everywhere outside before penetration.
Before even actually you started with taking off her clothes, it starts with the context. How did he invited her on a date? How he showed up? What he did before you even got physical, right? And then, you know, again, spiraling all the way down to there, right?
And it's with that belief, when I see, you know, when I was doing all the research on this, like sexless marriages and people sharing their stories about how, you know, sometimes they'll just go up to their wife and hold her and want to have sex, and the wife's like, I don't want to do it. And I'm thinking, well, it makes sense because of the belief that you shared with me, because they've not done anything to ignite that kind of sensation prior. And it's like, it started at the beginning of the day, but with men, it's like there and then in the moment. It's like, we just want to have sex there and then.
So there's one more thing to this that luckily people are now becoming more and more aware of, the different types of desire. So there's either spontaneous desire or a responsive desire. So to simplify that, spontaneous desire is kind of, you have a thought, it maybe starts in the mind, oh, I want to have sex, and then you're ready to have it, and then your body follows. And that's around 85% of men. While with women, it's the other way around. 85% of women have responsive desire. So there is a context that needs to happen, right? They need to maybe feel safe, emotionally connected, seen and heard, and then understood. And then there will be maybe soft touch or a massage, and their desire awakens based on that. So again, 85% of women more or less are having responsive desires. So it's kind of connected to that spiral or different way of looking at that.
And so does your work heavily, when you're working with couples, heavily on the male side, revolve around educating them that this starts at the beginning of the day?
Yeah. That's why we start with all kind of connection rituals, emotional intimacy, etc., so that women can feel safe and connected. Yeah, before we even start touching them.
The more I read into the relationship dynamics from Vedic scriptures, it just gets clearer and clearer how the more you kind of provide safety and honor your wife, the more she blossoms and the more the relationship blossoms. So it literally starts with the man just showing up and saying, okay, I'm going to make sure that I give you what you need, and then everything else just kind of falls into place.
Yeah.
And
how simple is that?
Yeah.
Right?
But obviously men just don't have the education today.
Exactly.
I'm going to read actually this account from Reddit that I found, and I want to get your thoughts on it. So he starts off by saying, he said, my wife thinks I have a low sex drive, but the truth is, and then he says, so my wife, she's a beautiful lady. I'm not interested in cheating or going behind her back. She just thinks we don't have a lot of sex because I have a low sex drive. But the truth is we don't have a lot of sex because we have it the way that she wants it and little to never how I want it. I'm all for using vibrators and whatever else to get her off as many times as possible. I'm a huge fan of everything else. But she scarcely returns the favor. She once said, if you shower before bed, I'll do it. So for a week straight, I made sure I showered and clean and was clean, because let's be real, who wants to go down on a smelly person? Totally reasonable request. I would do my thing with her, and then when it came to the receiving end, it was no avail. I have a really high sex drive, but she has become a selfish lover, and coming from a man, it's pretty comical to say this. I have no words at this point, and I'm pretty close to just giving up sex altogether.
Yeah, a bit of a opposite dynamic, right?
Yeah.
That we usually hear, but those happen as well. There's just, quite a few things wrapped up here. Clearly, he seems to me a little bit of a nice guy syndrome.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is quite common.
Yeah.
And not having clear boundaries or clear asks, or maybe not even being able to have a proper conversation. So I actually teach how to give a conscious feedback.
Wow.
And so this is one of the first things I would do, because obviously he's co-creating this dynamic in a way that he gives into that. And he continues to give her what she wants without
Getting what
being
he wants,
really,
yeah.
clear about receiving what he needs, right? So that's number one.
What would conscious feedback look like?
So, based on nonviolent communication, which I love, just a little bit simplified, I would first ask for permission. Can I give you a feedback? Are you open for that? So let's apply it to the case that we just read. Secondly, I would state facts. Very important, not opinions or judgments or perceptions. So the facts could be last 3 times we made love, you had an orgasm, or I have done what you requested, but what I have requested was not on the table or did not happen. Last 3 times we made love. This is a fact. This is not, oh, you never do what I say. Oh, you always just think of yourself. Those are perceptions. So we're going to move to facts. And this, I'm repeating it because that's where most people get it wrong. And the facts are important because she cannot get defensive about it, right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
Then next thing he can say how it made me feel. Okay, again, something she cannot get defensive about. So the guy could say, hey, it made me feel completely disconnected from you. It made me feel sad. It made me feel insecure. It made me feel angry, frustrated, whatever it is, right? And then a possible, what do you think of it, and a possible request. And it could be, hey, for me, our intimate life is the foundation of our relationship. And if both of our needs are not met, the relationship will crumble. And possible request, how about going to a conscious intimacy workshop or, I don't know, sex coaching therapy?
Yep.
I looked at 3 of them here. Would you be open?
I really like how you did that because because I actually speak a lot about being vulnerable in a masculine way for men. The idea comes from containment, right? So masculine is the container and women's feminine is inside, right? And so the problem arises with vulnerability in men where they almost the woman will disrespect them is when there's no containment. So it's like just emotions being sporadic, whether it's anger or whether it's crying, for example.
Yeah.
But where there's containment, so hey, I want to have this conversation. This is how I feel. This is the reason why I want to discuss it, and here's how we can come up with a solution.
Exactly.
That's just that's being vulnerable in a masculine way. So I really like that.
Yeah, and then the last question, I even give people steps for that. Okay, we practice that at the beginning of the course, and like, you have you avoided our last 3 intimate date nights, and anyway, so they have like a conscious way because the topic of intimacy will bring a lot and is charged, so there needs to be really a conscious way to communicate. The last step is also really important. How do you feel about that? So instead of imposing anything, you suggest something, bring solutions, not problems, right? Okay, I looked into this. These are 3 people that seem legit. How do you feel about this idea, right? So then it's like an open invitation rather than we have to do that.
Yeah.
So
I like
it really
that.
works.
Yeah. I really
So
like that.
this is the number one thing with this gentleman. He is co-creating this dynamic, and there needs to be like a hard stop and a real conversation and confrontation. To me, possibly he's avoiding that.
Yep.
And then secondly, really doing the work. Obviously, I actually like to really bring the erotic blueprint framework into situations like that.
Can you
by
just
Ms. Jaya.
break down the erotic blueprint?
There are 5 erotic blueprints. We are a combination of 5. Again, this is a framework by Ms. Jaya. Phenomenal. Similar to 5 love languages, but in a context of erotic life.
Okay.
Some of us are, I'm going to give you an example. I am predominantly energetic. So all the energy goes, etc. I love the stillness, the ritual, the eye gazing, the breath. Then I'm also very high on sensual. I like all my body being stroked. I like beautiful spaces. I can have a flower, music gasm, or an eargasm, or a lip gasm, etc. Again, none of the 2, the entry is required.
Yep.
The third one, I am 15% is kinky. So power dynamics, for example, psychological kink, dominant submissive, or physical kink, spanking, floggers, pain, etc. Then the number 4 is sexual. And actually, for women, it's not the first 2. they are usually energetic and sensual. So sexual, this is most relevant to what we see on porn.
Yep.
And then shapeshifter, who likes it all. Okay.
So sexual is what again? That they
Closest to what we see on pornography. So you like penetration, climax type of an orgasm, can be easily available for that and ready.
Yep.
While let's say, for example, sensual needs to be relaxed and it needs to be a beautiful place to even be open, etc. Right? So again, there's much more to that, but let's leave it for now. Possibly. I hear she wants all the toys, etc. She might be high on sexual, for example, and maybe he is sensual or energetic. And they are not meeting each other because, again, there is this idea of being incompatible and there is no frameworks, right? Like, what is your mother tongue? What is your mother language? Hindi, right? Mine is Polish, Are we incompatible? No, we now learn English so we can communicate this way, right? Yeah. So I love the erotic blueprints for that because they say, they give you an understanding where the differences are coming from.
Yep.
And they give you avenues of finding a common ground and building new scenarios that honor both partners. So that would be another, part of the work I would do with this couple.
Yeah, I love an erotic blueprint. I think I love any blueprint, to be honest. but genuinely speaking, it's exactly what you said. If I know my language and I know your language, and then literally one of these scenarios actually came up in one of the Reddit threads I was looking at, where this guy was complaining that every time he try and be with his wife and try and get into the mood, she just wasn't in the mood.
Yeah.
And we spoke earlier about how with women it starts at the beginning of the day. Yeah. But it could also be just a difference in their erotic blueprint, right? She's more maybe sensual and he's just sexual. He just sees her, he wants to have sex. And she's like, no, I need to feel things, etc. That's why I love it so much. I've got another one for you. So this is a female perspective. She says, to the men whose sex lives have tanked since their wives have had babies and are breastfeeding, she says, I've been struggling in my marriage for years. The biggest disagreement we had is mismatched sex drives. The reason being is I've had 3 babies, I've breastfed for a year, and within this entire shit show of hormonal changes, I have hated sex. She said, I didn't want any of that, no thank you. My husband, feeling distraught and unloved, suffered. He tried his best to help me with the day-to-day, give me breaks, but it didn't really help my sex drive. It just made me feel like I owed him, transactional, and I also suffered. I thought something was wrong with me. I was broken and wondering why other women get to enjoy sex, yet here I am. Am I just exhausted? Do I hate me? Is this forever? We argued and argued and argued. It never really felt like it was ending. Fast forward, my kids are still little, but I'm no longer in the postpartum stage of child having, and I'm finally done breastfeeding. My libido is back with a vengeance. I feel like myself again, and my marriage has fallen back into its groove. So to men whose wives have just had babies, please be kind, please have patience. We are not in control of these hormones. Don't give up. Yeah.
A lot of couples come to me with a similar challenge. I forgot the name of the person, a woman, I believe, yes, who wrote the book, who was specifically focused on sexuality when having kids. And she wrote a book, How Not to Let Your Kids Ruin Your Sex Life. I think I listened to a podcast with her. I have the book. I'm so sorry I forgot the name. And she mentioned, I think she has a PhD, etc., that research shows that it's about 6 years from having a child that sex will be different till it kind of normalizes.
6 years.
6 years. So that just reminded me of this book. Now, what I will say is the following. Yes, first of all, we need to have those conversations before because a woman's body will change. I usually tell women, at least 6 months or maybe even let's wait up to a year till we start to do the work together. Just give yourself some time and be gentle with yourself. There are changes in the body. Now, there are some other ways as well because, again, I believe that part of the challenge is that everyone equates sex. Often we mix connection and intimacy with sex. So often what happens is those couples just don't even get any kind of connection and intimacy because they're not sleeping well, they're free kids, they're so busy. And how about when the body changes, also dialing up on the emotional or spiritual intimacy? It doesn't have to be only physical. So I feel that is often missing. Are they even having any quality time? So what I will do, I would invite them to schedule intimacy time. And it doesn't have to be sex, but it can be cuddling, it can be just making out or kissing, just feeling intimate, okay? So that will help. Secondly, if we even go into the physical, again, we have so much to play with, not just the entry and penetration. What I, for example, loved to give a man is a beautiful Tantric lingam massage of 1 hour long, where I ride him through waves of pleasure and, bring him to a full body big O. So, for example, this could be something that she could offer her partner, right? So there are so many different options. Maybe they could just be sensual and interact in this way, or have an energetic orgasm together, just lying down and spooning and breathing for half an hour. So I bet they did not have those options available to them.
What if they don't feel like it? And so it comes down to the question, if you don't feel like doing these things, should you still just do it?
Okay, so what does it exactly mean you don't feel like doing it? Because if you have a responsive desire, you almost, always don't feel like doing it. If you ask on average any woman, do you want to have sex right now? 85% of them will say no. Because something needs to happen
To make it
in
happen.
order for their desire to awaken. There needs to be a context. They need to, again. So that's why let's schedule. Now, I love it that now what's becoming more popular is a temple night, stolen from the title stolen from the tantric world. So not a date night, because then people just go for dinner, drink wine, or maybe watch, a series together. And that's not what we're about here, right? We're really about quality time, connection, and becoming intimate. So a temple night, where you schedule a connection time where it's just the two of you, and you do some kind of practices to feel more connected, and then maybe a massage or a slower touch, and you build it up. And then again, there is a chance for you to feel more connected, and then desire can awaken. Because I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say you want to be fit and you want to have a healthy lifestyle, but you just don't feel like going to the gym.
Yep.
What do?
You still go.
You still go. And have you ever regretted going to a gym or to a yoga class?
No.
No,
Yeah.
because you feel amazing afterwards, right? It's the same here.
Yeah.
Schedule your intimacy time. Take the pressure away from penetration or an orgasm. Maybe it's going to go this way. Sometimes it will. And sometimes you will just be holding each other and maybe crying in each other's arms. And that will be it.
Yeah.
So show up for that anyway.
Yep.
And see what happens. And that's where the prioritizing and the commitment of the relationship really works. And that's what couples in my couples course tell me. Because we have this container, we have to schedule it and we have to show up. And then, actually magic happens. Because otherwise we're no, let's cancel. We're too tired. Let's postpone.
So it's almost treating it like a disciplined practice so that you can continue growing in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like everything else in life, if you want to grow it, you need to put time, energy, and resources into it.
See, my concern with this is men. Okay. So I think about me with my partner. Like, I would think intimacy to her is way more than just sex. So I'm going to make sure I provide that. But if a man doesn't have that fundamental understanding, he's not going to even care about the scheduled intimacy time, right? So he's not even going to consider even showing up for it. And so that's my concern. Like, how do you get men to come around on this idea?
Most of the men, I have the wives bring them.
Okay, that's interesting. So the wives almost lead this process.
Yeah. So usually, again, I mentioned this a little bit, right? It's usually the women who want to start doing this work first. So they start with my women's course, and then they become more playful. Then they become more orgasmic. Then they start to initiate more. And then the men become intrigued.
Right.
Okay. I see what's happening here. I don't want to miss out. Let's try.
Yeah.
So, does this always work? No. But, quite often.
Yeah. So step into your own power as a woman.
Inspire. I like to say seduce your partner into it. So nagging, forcing, manipulating is not going to work.
Yep.
What's going to work is inspiring, leading with an example, and seducing your partner into what you want.
I definitely want to get into do's and don'ts of the bedroom now. But just before that, I have a question. What do men secretly complain to you about their wives?
The men secretly complain. Okay, what I often hear is that nothing what they do seems to be right. And sometimes they already enter the bedroom with anxiety that whatever they do is not the right way. The touch is not the way he initiated, but not the way she wanted, or it's too fast, or it's too this, or it's too not that. And women often complaining, criticizing, but not appreciating or celebrating their men enough. So that's a big part of what I work with. Men want to be acknowledged, and celebrated and appreciated. And even if he's clumsy, great, but he's making an effort. So give him some time, give him a chance, and really appreciate him.
Yeah.
So we just had this conversation this week, and a woman was dreaming about her husband initiating more, and now he initiated, but he did it in the morning, and she really doesn't like the morning. And she's like, oh my God, I was so frustrated. I wanted to go and work out, and I was smelly, and here I am. Yeah. He's finally initiating, and then I'm a bitch, right, about it. So anyway, we kind of analyzed that, how you can say, how you can actually even admit that's exactly what is happening. I was dreaming about you initiating, and you finally are. And here I am being frustrated because I want to go and work out. But I want to really celebrate you, and I'm just so happy, and let's do more of it. And maybe next time, not in the morning. How would that work for you?
Yeah.
That's one of the complaints. That's probably the number one, I would say.
What about the flip side? What do women complain about men? What's the biggest thing?
The list is longer.
What do wives complain about their husband? I know it's going to be a long list, but I'm just wondering.
I think on the top of the list is men going too fast.
Men going too fast.
Mm-hmm. And it's with everything. Jumping into the physical.
Finishing too fast.
Finishing, it depends. Because if it's not great, women want it, actually unlike what we most think. If it's just, jackrabbiting, most women want it to finish faster.
Makes sense.
Very few women want jackrabbiting for 20 minutes. But just, foreplay, touch.
They don't go long enough, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or too fast.
I guess next question is, what do men get wrong in the bedroom?
Listen, so I don't want to say men get it wrong because, again, this might sound quite critical towards men. And I think, they're already criticized enough. And I always like to bring compassion because, again, what did we taught men? Nothing. Mm-hmm. We gave them porn and completely, unrealistic view of sexuality where they learned from. So I think, first acknowledging that what they saw on porn is not reality. It's it's entertainment, okay? And that's not how women's bodies work. So even acknowledging that there are things for them to learn. The other idea is the definition of performance for men and women is completely else. So everyone feels this pressure of performance. But if you ask them what it means for men to last, to be as hard, as big, and last as long as possible, and that's actually not what women care about at all. They care about feeling connected, about them being present, about feeling pleasure, not, getting to the finish line, right? So the idea of the performance, can we actually talk about that and ask for each other desires and preferences rather than assume what that performance should look like? Another misunderstanding is that that the most important thing is penetration. and that the easiest way for women to orgasm is from just going longer and harder inside of her. It's not.
Yeah, yeah. What should a man hear instead?
Again, understanding that actually one of the most sexiest qualities is his presence.
Wow. Okay.
Guys, it's not about what you do, it's how you do it. So another thing, like if you look at my Instagram, I always laugh about it because all these viral posts are the techniques and the positions. And yeah, it's a quick fix. But I even did a new reel that we posted yesterday is where, you know, if you just think of techniques and positions, it's like having a burnt toast and putting a jam on top of it to cover it.
It's not very, yeah.
It just doesn't work. So I know it doesn't sound, it's not viral and it doesn't sound sexy, but some of those basics are really important. So making her feel safe, making her feel like you're genuinely interested and being present with her. So that's that. Yep. And it's less about what you do, more about how you do it. And it's actually less about doing altogether and more about just freaking being.
Yeah.
Number 2, tease. Make her yearn and make her beg for more. I think one of my first teachers told me this. He was teaching a lot of men, and he would say, you want to worship your woman, you want to pleasure her, till she asks or begs you to enter her. And not just once, 3 times. Only then she's truly ready.
Yeah, I think I've heard something like this before. Yeah.
Right? Oh my God. So longer foreplay, just like make her yearn for more, make her desire you more and ask for it. And then still don't give it to her or give a little bit and tease and build more anticipation. And make her the water boil. You know, one of my viral reels is with the water boiling versus the fire burning, right? It takes much longer for the water to boil, but once she boils, she will stay warm and, you know, for a much longer time, while the fire often burns out faster. Yeah. So that. Then don't just focus on her genitals. Please, entire body is erotic.
Yep.
Again, the spiral, start from the outside, slowly approach more sensitive erogenous zones.
Yeah.
Remember, her portal to opening is her heart and her chest. So really spend some time there.
Okay.
And there is this cliche saying that, again, has some truth to it, that women need to, I think, feel love in order to open to sex, and men need to have sex in order to open to love. Something like that, right? Again, little cliche and generic, but there is some part to that. So this is our portal, and you want to make us feel connected, seen, heard, appreciated, safe first before you go down there.
Did you ever watch Friends? TV show?
I don't watch TV shows.
Ever?
No, there's only one, Sex and the City, that I watched when I was younger. Since then, no.
There's a scene in Friends, and Monica is one of the characters, and Chandler's the other, the guy. And
I know of them. Yeah.
You know what? Okay, and so Chandler goes to Monica and says, basically, teach me how to make a woman go crazy in the bedroom. And so Monica breaks down all the erogenous zones and then does this entire scene saying you want to start here and do 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, and then this whole pattern sequence. And it just reminded me of that. So I'm curious to know, obviously there's a chest area. What else does a man need to know before we move on to women when it comes to the bedroom? So I know there's neck, there's chest, there's ears, what else?
So I like to do a body mapping. So you figure it out. You don't have to, again, another actually important quality of being a good lover is being attentive and curious.
Yeah.
Not always coming up with 7 ninja moves and, repeating the same thing on every woman because, again, they might have different erotic blueprint and you're going to start really slow and sensual and she's kinky.
Yep.
So being open and curious and asking for feedback and trying different things. That's why I love to use the pleasure scale. How pleasurable is that from 1 to 10, right? So I do this on the workshops. I invite volunteer on the stage, and I have no idea what they like. And I start playing with different things, and it's like, how does that feel from here? Let's scratch here. How does that feel from 1 to 10? It's a 3. Okay, let's move on. Ooh, here. Ooh, that's a 5. And now we're going to scratch a little harder. Ooh, that's a 7. So you kind of learn and discover what is so pleasurable for them. But some of the most well-known non-genital erogenous zones: scalp, ear, neck, wrists, inner elbow, hips, inner thighs, ankle, feet.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did
My
not know.
favorite, definitely neck and ears are high on the list.
I didn't know about inner elbow. That's the new one.
There's armpit. There are some others,
All of that.
but yeah.
What about women? Let's talk about women in the bedroom.
So why don't we bring back the spiral approach, right? So we said that the women is from the outskirts, all from the least erogenous, actually from the context itself, emotional connection, safety, the least erogenous zones to a little bit more erogenous zones, and then closer, and the last goes the entry, right? With the men, it can be the other way around. So we start with what we call positive energy pole. Let's just say the lingam. And we build up the energy here, and then we start to lift it up to his heart and help him with that. And this can happen through riding him through the waves of pleasure. So edging, let's say, most people will know what that is. There's a little bit more to this than edging, because with edging, there's mostly a physical component. With riding the waves of pleasure, to me, there's an energetic and spiritual component to it. So building up pleasure and then relaxing and allowing him to slow down. What I really love to do as well is what men do not experience so often, to really be a full-on receiver and surrender to a woman. So I love that. And then I go through a proper lingam massage. And ride them through the waves of pleasure. Bring them to an excitement of a 7 or a 6, then slow it down, ask them to breathe and sound, and help them to move the energy up from here all the way to the heart, and then build up some pleasure again and kind of ride that wave for a couple of times.
Yeah. See, this sounds like real intimacy, compared to what we see of like TV shows, movies, porn, etc.
Yeah.
Like this, what you're describing sounds like actual intimacy. I know you have videos and tons of advice in terms of like what she should be doing on top, what men should be doing and stuff like that. What are kind of like the top, I'd say, 3 pieces of advice you would give to a woman in terms of like how she should be? So
number one piece of advice, ladies, stop concentrating so much on how to bring him pleasure and shift the focus inside. And focus on how can you feel more, how can you become more orgasmic, how can you feel more pleasure, and how you can express it. Because, and this is the feedback I also get for so many of my lovers, it's amazing how I can feel your body responding to whatever I do, how the pleasure moves through you, how much sound you make, how alive, because that is actually contagious. And men genuinely really love to see a woman experiencing a lot of pleasure with them. And we are so focused on how the women always ask me at the beginning, give me free techniques, how to, do the head or how to do this. I'm like, can you start with yourself? Feeling more pleasure, enjoying yourself and expressing it, not being quiet, but literally making sounds, moaning on saying, hey, I love what you do. I feel so good. So that is the tip number 1.
Yep.
Tip number 2, positive reinforcement. Instead of telling your partner what doesn't work and cutting off his balls and demotivating him, and again, as I said, so many men think like I'm scared to even start because nothing I do is good enough. Point out on what works. This is such a small change, but so significant, okay? And let's say, you can even say, even if it's a tiny thing, after you made love, I love to implement what I call a conscious closure. So, hey, like talking about what worked, what we could do better for next time. So in a conscious closure, I would say, you know what? That moment that you actually stopped moving and you looked me in the eyes, that was so powerful. I felt you inside of me. I felt like we connected on a soul level. I just loved that. Even if it's like 5 seconds of, 10 minutes you've done, point on this one moment and really express how it made you feel and why it worked, so he can come back to that next time. So positive reinforcement. And third one, do you want something specific? No, but there's just too many things.
What about her on top? Because I know you speak a lot about that.
Great. Let's do that one because there's just so many tips. Being cowgirl positions, great. Why? Because again, it's a beautiful way to lead without teaching. So teaching can get a little awkward because you're immediately creating this balance and the dynamic. Hey, I know better. Now I'm going to tell you what to do. A lot of men don't really, it's not the best way to approach them. Okay. And it can create this mommy dynamic here that can sometimes kill the attraction, right? And it can be a little bit intimidating. So when you take the lead, it's a beautiful way to show them what you want without schooling them. I love either cowgirl and being on top or another one that let's do this one because that's a less common, what I call active receiver. So let's say even from the behind or even when men in a missionary, you ask your male partner to stop moving and you start to move. Okay. And then you can angle your hips. You can come closer and further. You are in charge of the pressure, the rhythm, the speed. Active receiver.
Wow.
And there's actually a research that shows that like almost 90% of women experience more pleasure and better orgasms when they angle their hips, when they circulate their hips. So again, it's just as simple as telling your partner, hey, can you stay still for a moment and let me lead?
And the man can also learn in that moment, like
boom,
what moves
without
she's
being
doing.
schooled. So let's repeat that because we have like free codes, right?
Yeah.
We had ladies focus on your pleasure and know that it's important and expressing it, making it clear, experiencing it. Positive reinforcement, active receiver.
I love that. Yeah. It's so funny because for men, you said it was presence. And for women, you said focus on your own pleasure. And I just think about both like together, even as a man, like my best moments in the bedroom have always been when I've just been so present. And it's not that I've been focused on my own pleasure, but by almost being so connected in that moment to what's going on, I'm wanting to do more as a result. So it kind of leads back to what you were saying, which is like when you focus on your pleasure, you almost become more into it, essentially.
Exactly. And then it's also contagious.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, So by you making more sounds and I can actually just come from hearing my partner come.
Wow. Okay.
It's typical energetic blueprint.
Yeah.
Quality.
Yeah.
But most men are so quiet. So that's a big part of what I teach them. Express your pleasure because it's contagious and you can just hop on a wave.
But it all comes down to knowing like what we said at the beginning, which was like connecting to your own body through your own self-pleasure and figuring that out first. And then you become better. And I'm starting to see the connections now.
I get, this is the analogy that I give a lot. And I love those simple analogy. Oh,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
If a couple wants to have an amazing intimacy, make love, think of it as two guitar players co-creating a beautiful melody or a song. Now imagine that both of those guitar players come and they never practice playing their own guitar.
Yeah.
What song are you going to create?
It's true. Very true.
Right? No melody, for sure. So self-pleasure is really the foundation. You need to learn to play your own instrument. You need to understand how it works. And, it's also fun. It's not like playing guitar by yourself is just some kind of a, dull homework that you're going to suffer doing, right? It's fun. I love it equally. I love equally playing my own instrument as I love to play with someone else. It's not, neither is better or worse. It's different and both are valid. And again, this will be the foundation of how you show up to play with another person.
I want to briefly touch on sex magic.
Okay, this became such a popular thing these days.
Yeah, I want to talk about sex, manifestation. Firstly, I want to understand what's the not entire science, but the brief science behind it? Like, how does it? How do you manifest from sex?
There are a few lenses to look at that. The lens, I like to be less woo and a little bit more practical. So I like to first look at the lens of the inner versus outer work. So let's say you want to manifest, that's something I wanted. I wanted to manifest to become a millionaire. I came from communism, poverty, scarcity mindset. So we are so good in our society in everything that is outer work, meaning I went to study finance and banking. I worked hard. I had a 5-year plan. I applied for the best companies. Then I, was climbing the ladder, blah, blah, blah. All this outer work. But we are dismissing often the inner work. I didn't feel worthy of it. I came from communism. I didn't feel I'm good enough. I didn't believe I can even actually get there altogether because my dad would, always tell me that it's like I'm, smoking mirrors and whatever, right? So you need to accompany it with the inner work. So sex magic is a little bit of that. It's that inner work where you start to feel worthy of it, where you create new neuropaths in your brain using pleasure. Saying, let's say, I am actually worthy of wealth. I am smart. I am capable.
Whilst pleasuring.
While pleasuring, because it's a little bit easier for your nervous system to create this new neuropath if it feels good. Okay? So it's a little bit like of doing the inner rewiring on that, the inner part of the work. Another thing is that there are parts of the brain's hypothalamus that do, I think it's called value tagging, information filtering, where of course there is infinite number of information every second, and our brain has to decide what it's going to let in and what it's going to ignore. So usually it bases it on familiarity. So let's say, another example I'm going to give you. If women are super successful, now they are, in a managerial positions and working really, really hard, and they come to me saying they want to attract a partner. But the reality is they're working 12 hours a day, then they go to the gym, and then they go to sleep because they're tired, right? So for the brain, it's not enough familiarity with the topic. So when you start to do let's say, manifestation and sex magic work, you start to put attention on this topic, right? So your brain, your hypothalamus starts to recognize, hey, this is actually a familiar topic that we want to focus on. So now we're going to let that information in. And then there is the value tagging, I believe it's the second term. While it's already in, your brain is going to prioritize it.
Right.
Okay. And if it's not familiar, or if you're really not really focusing on it, you're just saying you want to attract a partner, but you never go on a date and you only work, then it's not going to categorize it as a priority. The more you do the manifestation work, do you see that? You start to focus your attention. You do visualization. Your focus, your attention, your energy goes towards that. And your whole system starts to recognize it as something more important. So there is a little bit more, less woo-woo explanations to all that. We can go a little further, but since we're coming to an end, I'm going to give the other part to that. So we are taking essentially sexual energy, the life force energy, the energy that creates new life if directed outwards. And we're going to move it from the triangle of creation up to the triangle of creativity, right? So when you move, instead of throwing the energy out with a climax type of an orgasm, let's say, we're going to start moving the energy up. And again, for those who know the work of Joe Dispenza, similar idea, right? The energy becomes lighter, it becomes higher frequency, and then we kind of bring it to, in the Tantric word, to a place where the awareness, the unmanifested, the consciousness, the Shiva is, and we bring that sexual energy, the Shakti, the energy that allows it to manifest, and they unite here, and we kind of shoot that vision into the cosmos, and we are in that frequency of creation and high elevated state, right? All the manifestation coaches will tell you manifest from a place of love or gratitude, right? Well, orgasmic state is exactly that or even more, right? Where we are with this really high vibrational state. And we're not just doing it from the cortex, from the logical part of the brain, but we are bringing on the entire body, the entire nervous system, and showering it with feel good, pleasure, etc. So it's kind of easier to manifest. It's a really high level.
I got goosebumps when you were explaining it. Yeah, I really liked it. No,
but
it
that's
makes sense.
that's the idea, more or less, the high level idea behind that.
So you're moving the energy up. I know obviously there's your course and people can go through that and experience it. But for those other listeners, how can they practice that themselves where maybe they want to make $1 million or whatever it is? How can they use sex to manifest these things?
Yeah, so first of all, become clear of what you really want. Most people don't even know that, okay? They usually know what they don't want because that's how our brain works. So if you will be surprised when I ask people when they join my courses, well, how do you like it to be? Well, I don't want it to be a chore.
Yeah.
I don't. No. Okay, what's on the other side? So be clear about what you want. Then dedicate, let's say, an hour of your time to self-pleasure, because it's not going to work, maybe it's going to work, but it's going to be much more meaningful and nourishing and powerful if you spend some time slowing down, observing your arousal level, and then you don't have to move energy per se. You just have to move awareness.
Okay.
And then the energy will follow. This is like a code when I give people at the beginning, so it's easier for them. So you can go through all energy centers. Again, some of you will know, some of you don't. It's information easy to find. So you can just
These are chakras, right?
build up a little bit of pleasure, and then move your awareness up. And to help you do that, you can bring touch to each of those centers. You can breathe into your lower abdomen, your chest, right? You can make specific sound that corresponds to each of those centers. So it's a little bit easier. And once you move the awareness, the energy will start to follow, right? Because people are like, how do you move energy? Do you like grab it? You lift it? Do you tell it to move?
I've always been curious about this,
Move awareness, the energy follows attention, right? So then you're moving it up, and again, it's going to completely change its quality. Here, it's more animalistic, primal, more genital intensity. Once it's going to go to your heart, it's more about unconditional love and feeling one with everyone or the universe. And then when it travels up here, it's going to be more of kind of meditative states, mystical experiences, much more subtle. And then when you bring it all the way up here, you're going to shoot it out to the universe, maybe in the state of orgasm or peak pleasure state for that session, and then you're gonna anchor the energy back down.
Oh, wow.
Simplified version of this again.
Anchor the energy, meaning awareness back down again.
Yes,
right?
awareness back down to ground, and then you can combine that manifestation work with some of the mostly aligned action steps.
Okay, so we got manifestation in the material world of things that you want to see. Is this also how you can kind of connect to divinity?
Absolutely, yes.
It would be the same process.
Yes, essentially, yes, moving the energy up. And if you really look at the different belief systems, that's where they were all about, right? Is it the Taoist tradition in ancient China where you move the energy up through the circle, called microcosmic orbit? Is it even the ancient Egypt, the codes of Isis? They're like the two serpents that you move through the Ka body, and it's called Ka energy. Or is it more like yogic or Kundalini tradition where you move the serpent up the central channel? The bigger picture is the same, taking that energy here and moving it up. And using it for accessing altered states, etc.
So in that moment of the top chakra, you'd basically think of God or whatever you believe in.
Listen, it's kind of going to happen by itself, okay? Because when the energy moves here, you already are in a much more relaxed, receptive, meditative state. So you don't even have to think of God. It's just you're gonna experience a place of peace and trust and relaxation that you're going to start to feel it, perceive it. It's kind of almost less doing, but more just allowing yourself to surrender into that space.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit more advanced. So again, I invite people to, do a bit of a deeper work.
I'm thinking about also the couples who want to connect to divinity, and this is also can be part of their process as well.
So then what we learn is the same way you can circulate the energy within yourself, you can circulate it in between partners. And it's called circle of light, okay? Where a woman gives from her heart, he receives, and then he gives from his positive pole, and we receive here. Wow. And you start to circulate that energy. And again, you go into those altered states, stir, when you lose track of time. You become one. You don't even have to move. You are merging into each other. You're melting. State of divine union also can be called like that. Magical.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to be naked or penetrating. You can be also in your clothes. That's what I also do with couples. Yeah. Because energy doesn't know time and space, and it can circulate either way. So beautiful.
Yeah. I'm loving this so much because it's like couples intimacy, self-empowerment, connecting to divinity, manifesting the life that you want. It's all connected. And the more you just kind of follow that circle, the more it spirals up and up and up in your life, basically. I've got two kind of final questions. How could someone's entire life change a year from now if they kind of started practicing the work that you do?
To be honest with you, look at me. Everything changed. Every area of your life can change because it's going to start. It's funny because people come into the door mainly because of the orgasms and pleasure and etc. And then once they're in, they realize it's like a whole life-changing experience. Anything can change from the way you relate to your own body and your own pleasure, the levels of pleasure and types of orgasms you experience. That means also the joy of life, connection to things like spirit, energy, so on. Having intuitive hits or downloads or visions, being clear about your boundaries, asking for what you want, again, in the bedroom, outside, attracting new partner, opportunities, a job, you name it.
Yeah.
And for each of my clients, it's a different journey.
Yeah. You have all of this work that you've done, all of these courses you've created. But if there was one thing that you could give to the entire world to fix any relationship problems they're facing, what would that one piece of advice be?
Open and commit to learning and practicing, becoming better at it.
Learning about yourself, learning about your
about yourself, intimacy, how to become a great lover, what your pleasure is like.
Yep.
Unlike most of people think, no, there is just so much to learn, and becoming good at it is not about, I'm just being born orgasmic or I'm just not.
Yep.
No, you can learn and practice becoming better at sex.
So thanks so much, Bibi. I'm so grateful for having you. How can people find out more information about you?
Yes. So obviously my Instagram account, Planet BB, but then also make sure you subscribe to my newsletter because you never know what can happen there. And I really, guys, you can work with me from anywhere. My signature courses are online and they're live. So it's not like you buy some bunch of videos and then you never see me again and you never finish them. We start as a group, we finish as a group. There is a community from all over the world, from Argentina to Saudi Arabia and everything in between.
Amazing.
And I work predominantly with women only. So if your partner is skeptical, hesitant, don't worry, start doing the work yourself. Or then, couples work, Ecstatic Lovers Academy, and Ladder to Bliss. These are my two main courses. Otherwise, there's tons of other things, free practices you can find. So maybe you want to start with that, free live masterclasses. So again, you can feel into my style of teaching and you can really tune in from anywhere. So no excuses, guys.
Amazing.
And it's all about practice, not just talking.
Yeah.
Because podcasts are great, and I hope so many seeds were planted. But guys, what it really comes down to is practicing all that. So that's where I love, in those deeper containers, I have practices for everything, and they're beautiful, elegant, and made with so much care.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.